Hello, hello, hello. We are so excited. We, the proverbial we, Anita and I are excited. And we've already been chatting with our fabulous guest, and we want to welcome you to our YouTube channel, Feng Shui with Anita and Cheryl. And of course, this is one of the new episodes on our playlist, joining and welcoming people to our F.L.A.W.C. F.L.A.W.C. And it stands for what, Anita? What do we want it to stand for today?
You know, originally we said it stood for Feng Shui. Yeah, it stands for Feng Shui with Anita and Cheryl. No, it stands for Fruit Loop and Wind Chime Club, which is an endearment that was coined by our friend and spiritual mentor, Lee Carroll.
Yeah.
However, every guest that we've had on, we asked them to give us their definition of the acronym. And the one that I love that was given to us by Tara Catherine Collins, I believe.
It was. I know which one you're talking about.
Flowing love and activating whirling chi.
Yeah, love that one.
So,
and my favorite from Kate, our inspiring Kate the Hardest, was fun living always with creativity.
Yeah. So what does flock mean to you? You know, it can mean whatever. Anyway, so this is our flock, and we just want to be able to, I mean, we met this beautiful soul online, and it's just kind of one of those instant things, right? Like, you know, immediately when you've connected with one of your soul sisters, we've been down the road, we've worked together before, and even though we have never met in person yet, in physical flesh in this lifetime, we just knew that we had to have her on. So
I agree. So please welcome the one, the only Emily Harrison. Woo, woo, woo.
Away from Reno, Nevada.
Yes, coming to you from the high Sierras right now. It's wow, what a welcome. And I feel so honored to be here. Thank you for allowing me to share sacred time with each one of you ladies. And ditto, the soul recognition and lifetimes of work that we have done together is absolutely apparent. And I'm excited because we're also coming together for the first time recently in this lifetime, and we're getting to explore each other and our gifts. And there are soul missions and contracts and ways that we get to activate each other that we're now exploring. And I think it's so beautiful that your audience, especially being of high level consciousness, or they wouldn't be here listening to this, get to understand that behind the scenes connection, and that they're watching in real time an unfolding that has been written in the stars, written in the galaxy, here to support our evolution. And it's really fun and exciting. We're all part of a much bigger story. I love it. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. You know, you're already talking our language, and people that are watching are going, yeah, I like this woman.
Who is she? What does she do?
Who is she? Yeah, what does she do? So let's start at the beginning. Where did you grow up? Like, was your spiritual awakening, you came into this lifetime, or did you have a series of moments?
Yes and no. I think to a certain degree we all come in with things activated. I don't know that I came in feeling definitely not fully aware. I had some senses activated. I think as a child and as infants, we all tend to have more of that activated.
Agreed.
And slowly shut it down. But I grew up in a really small town in Missouri. Normally, I kind of start when I talk about my adventure of life, really from my high school era, because that's when I think a lot of us really begin to look around. We begin to rebel from what's around us. We begin to really take on or take steps forward into our self-identity. The identity is being formed way before, right? And I usually start my story there because it's kind of interesting, but you brought me back to something today when you talk about like pieces and parts of activation along the way. I do remember, and it wasn't until I made a commitment to my own spiritual journey and evolution did these memories come up and make sense. But I do remember as a really young child, not only feeling psychic, but also feeling like I had connection to angels. There was one particular moment when I felt like I connected with Archangel Raphael, like I viscerally felt him holding my hand. And there was also experiences where I felt like, I'm just going to use this language, although it doesn't necessarily scare me because I've explored it quite a bit, but I feel like there were abductions or times when my consciousness was taken from this reality and trained in other dimensions of space and time. And so yeah, there were activations along the way, and probably like many of us, I shut it down along the way. It wasn't accepted. There wasn't space to have curiosity or to cultivate these gifts and skills. So I cultivated more radical 3D kind of skills, rebellious skills. And in high school,
that really easy to believe, you know?
Well, growing up in this small town, you know, you had to belong to one church in town. We were Southern Baptists. And when I say we, I mean, we were Southern Baptists. My mama was a Sunday school teacher, and I was all up in church, Sunday morning, Sunday night, youth group, church camp for that matter. Like I was into it, and I was also really rebellious. I mean, anybody who knows me from growing up in that space, I can't profess to be that like crystal clean youth group girl for too long. I was, but then I was also, you know, I was sneaking out of my house, and my parents, and you know what, it's interesting. They talk about that being a characteristic of ascended masters when they reincarnate here. And
rebellion.
Me, yeah, it's nobody can tell them what to do. I first was right. I think we're getting better. And I want to set a good example of what it looks like of owning our mastery as we're stepping into it, because the human in there sometimes can feel difficult to claim how powerful we truly are. So I feel like I want to own that a little bit more, but it was easier for me to see and consider that possibility through my kids, because I got 3 children, and sometimes they just, like, I see this in them and I start to get angry, but then I realize, oh, hang on a second, that's actually a characteristic that I want to shift the paradigm around. But I found that in myself. Like, my parents would tell me to be home at a certain time, and I would check in, and then as soon as they were asleep, I was out the door. So this started, you know, in my teenage years. And when I went to college, I went to University of Missouri, and after year 2, it's just, the more I was being pushed into this mold and what life looks like, the more I rebelled from it. My spirit was not happy. And I had a really cool, like every man, but then not really every man kind of moment. I was at a stoplight. And there's really interesting things that happen when we're driving. We're using different brain waves. You're at a stoplight, you kind of zone out, your consciousness shifts. My consciousness shifted in that moment. And there was a realization of what it means to really like be true to yourself and live the life that you want and take responsibility for what you create. Like, life is yours, live it. And in that moment, it was kind of like, all right, fuck this, I'm out of here. I'm gonna move to Hollywood and become an actress. Like, all of a sudden my life made sense. I'd barely been in school plays before. And it was this storyteller part of me, this shadow or repressed part of me came forward in that moment. And it like allowed me to embody and here's where I say it's not so everyman, because I think that we all get glimpses of our greatness, and we do what I didn't do in that moment, which is diminish it or hide it or
shut it down
or pass, whatever it was. And I took inspired, focused action on it, which for me looked like packing my bags and stuffing as much stuff as I could in my car and driving cross country to Hollywood, quitting life in Missouri when I was 19 years old. And I moved to Hollywood and dove into the entertainment business, became an actress. Within about a month of being there, I think, I landed my first lead role in a film, which I'm really proud of, and then maybe not so proud of, but I was proud of it. And it's funny, my cousin back in Missouri just sent me a link to, so I came out somewhere, but Puppet Master 6. Anybody know the Puppet Master series? horrible series, a cult classic of really bad movies with puppets. And I was in number 6, and I felt like The Alchemist. Remember the story of The Alchemist, where when we make these bold decisions and we create space for our dreams, we have beginner's luck. Not a lot of beginner's luck. And then I had all the ride that everybody who makes their way in Hollywood has. But what I began to learn in Hollywood was that I was playing in the big leagues. And what I noticed about myself was I was better in my head than I was in real life.
Aren't we all?
In auditions, right? I figured, I gotta get this solved, or like you can't fake it here, right? And so I not only dove into really learning the craft of acting. I would find the best acting classes in the city that I could find to be in. And when I would get good enough that I was the best person in the room, it was the same analogy in my mind. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So I would hightail it to the next acting class where I felt scared to get up and work with the people. So I always pushed myself in that way. But I also found that I needed tools to manage my own internal energy, because I would still get really nervous in auditions. And I would have 3, 4, 5 of them, sometimes a week, a day even sometimes. And so what began to work for me was meditation and Qigong and yoga and practices that allowed me to cultivate my internal energy body, to understand my subtle energy and to have more, to be able to manage it more dynamically. And so as I did that, I would get more and more roles. And as I got more and more roles, I'm like, oh, this is working. The more and more I want to do it. And as anybody, right, as you know, when you commit to that kind of practice of creating space to know the truth of who you are, the journey unfolds for you. And so the more I committed to the practice, the more I had interest in learning about quantum physics, how it worked to, the magician archetype is really alive for me in this incarnation. I want to learn how to create, how to alchemize things and how to create things. And I think that starts with the healing process of alchemizing our karma or our unlearned lessons. It's a purification process that allows us to harness our power. And so I became really interested in all kinds of healing modalities, and I would do them. And then I would be like, oh, this works. This is so cool. I would do them along with like whatever podcast I was listening to. What I noticed was the same about all of them, though, was I heard in the back of my head, you can do this too. You can do this too. And I got to the point in my own just life where the curiosity and the desire to help people with this just would come out of me. Like I noticed I had children, so I dropped them off at school. And okay, so I kind of broke the quantum rules a little bit. Does that surprise any of you?
Quantum rules?
Well, okay,
no.
I'll explain. So I would drop the kids off at school, and there were, you know the parents' business, other parents' business of what's going on. And there was a particular parent who I knew was going through health challenges. And where I say I broke the quantum rules, we're not supposed to get anybody else's psychic business ever and do work for them. However, I was in a practice mode and I was curious. And so I would walk behind him and I would just ask for intuitive guidance. And I would I call it Minority Report style. It's like Tom Cruise with the gloves and he just move things. And I'd just be like, show me where to move the energy. And I would just I'd be walking back to my car and move the energy. And then I found myself outside gardening one day when a neighbor came limping by. I said, hey, why are you limping? Oh, I shattered my ankle in a terrible accident. I fell and it's not healing well. I said, well, do you want to come over for some energy healing? And then I say it and inner Emily is like, what the fuck? You're an actress. You're an energy healer. Why did you say that? And he said, yes. And I'm like, okay.
Uh-oh.
And he's like, let me go put my dog away and I'll be back. And then I'm like, what am I going to do? Okay. So I grabbed this piece right here and we get to talk about this a little bit more.
Absolutely. Yay.
A tuning fork that my mom gave me. And like I said, I had a lot of knowledge about a lot of different things. And what popped into my mind was solfeggio scale, which is ancient harmonic frequencies that are sound waves that attune our field to particular frequencies where dimensional possibility becomes available to us. That makes sense. That's how I'm hearing the guides explaining right now. And so I went for 528 hertz, which is the miracle frequency. Is it 528 or 524? I might have, it's 528. Yeah.
528.
Yeah. And this is the one that's known to repair broken DNA. It's known as the miracle frequency. So I'm like, all right, that sounds good. And I plop these big old headphones on him, and I stick his foot up on a chair, and I just start waving this tuning fork around, right? I'm just like, if anybody comes home right now, I'm gonna have some explaining to do. This is very weird. And then into my awareness, his father who had passed came in. And again, I knew, I'd seen enough episodes of Long Island Medium at this point. I knew what was going on. Like, I guess I'm supposed to talk to you. So I began a telepathic conversation with his father in my head. Rookie mistake. I start out by, I'm like, well, what's your name? Of course, Spirit speaks to us in our own reference points and experience. So the name comes through Bob, but not Bob, but a J name. So it's a short name like Bob, but a J. Okay, fine. And I continue to ask him more questions. He takes responsibility for saving his son. I'm like, well, you did a shitty job. His ankle is shattered. Okay, fine. Again, fine, have it your way. And then the last image that I remember was really potent was he showed me his hands. And I knew that my friend and his father had been estranged. I knew very little about him, but I knew that he didn't have a great relationship with his dad growing up, and had spent some time estranged with him. The session was over. He left. I didn't say anything about Bob, but not Bob coming in. Go inside, go to the bathroom. I'm washing my hands, and it's just like Bob's knocking. Hey, tell him I was here. Tell him I was here. So I texted him and said, all right, this happened. I feel like your dad came through during the session. I am definitely not a medium, but if you want, I feel like I want to share with you what came through if you feel like you're open to hear it. And of course he was. And so comes back over, we started breaking it down. What's your dad's name? My dad's name is Alan. And I'm like, well, got that one wrong. He tells me it's Bob, but not Bob, but I see like a J name. And that face went white. He said, my dad's name was Alan J. He went by J, his middle name, J-A-Y. And then I said, well, and then I shared the part about him, the dad taking responsibility for saving him, and me saying it didn't do very good. And my friend explained that it was one of those situations where 2 inches a different way, because what happened was he had passed out. He had lost consciousness and passed out in a place where he fell and shattered and broke his ankle. But it was 2 more inches, and it would have been down 2 concrete flights of stairs.
Wow.
And then when I talked about the hands, that's when he shared with me that he and his father had made amends in this lifetime, and he was holding his father's hand when he passed.
Oh.
And just experiencing that,
Yeah.
experiencing the healing, experiencing being the vessel of what happens when we just surrender and play and trust. There was that was a timeline shift for me, where this is the greatest story ever told. People can turn these skills on and have this kind of an experience. And no story I could ever tell in Hollywood would ever match this. And so I went searching like instantly for, I need a certification in something. I'm going to hang a sign on my door. I'm going to help people. I don't know what it looks like, but I'm ready. Like, right? Anoint me. And I grabbed a Conscious Life magazine or something that I had picked up on my last audition, and was flipping through the back. Yoga, no, Reiki, Akashic Records. That's it. Because my mom had gifted me a session about 10 years prior. And of course, in my self-study and immersion, I had an understanding that this was an area, a realm of consciousness that held all information from universal mind, from God perspective. Like, well, that feels like pretty much everything. Like, I could get anything I ever wanted, like all encompassing. I'll take that one. And I dove into training with a master level trainer in the Akashic Records, and flew through that process. It was just like a remembrance of my soul and life feeling joyful and exciting and curious and making sense. And I knew that I was on the verge of a reinvention of myself. I also knew, because I think our childhood tells us everything. I was also teaching my stuffed animals their ABCs from the time, teaching Bible school all along. Like there was a teacher in me.
You've been a teacher your whole life. Well, all your lives.
Yeah. And there was a part of me right off the bat that recognized I'm going to be the most effective teaching other people how to do this. Furthermore, we should all be able to read our own soul records anyway. And all humans can. Not all humans are ready to or will have the same level of access, because we're talking about a really high level of mastery here. But we're also talking about human potentiality. And there's so much untapped potentiality that we have that the Akashic records can be the guidebook for, whether it's, you know, assistance in medicine and technology, new paradigms for our society, for government, for how we establish and organize ourselves, for how we exchange commerce and value and reciprocity. So the coming back online of this particular ancient modality is perfectly timely. And I also
Imagine that.
Well, I think that the internet is a perfect construct that allows people to wrap their head around conceptually what it is we're even talking about. Like I said, when I say not everybody's ready to access the records, if one's not ready, the concept won't even appear in your field. And if it does, you won't get it. You'll be like, that's stupid.
And you'll think we're all Fruit Loop and wind chimes. Right? Yeah.
But
so
with the internet,
like,
there's
whoa, whatever.
Yeah, there's
okay. So I have a burning question. So you had mentioned that your mom had gifted you an Akashic record session 10 years prior. So that for me is a curiosity about,
what did your mom know?
Where your mom was, because you just said that, you grew up in the Southern Baptist and she was the ringleader at church, that kind of thing. So how does she go from, obviously somebody went knock, knock on her head, and is she still supporting you in your journey and all that fun stuff?
She's going to love this story. It's so cool because my mom has really come alive as a supporting character in my journey. And yes, she has had an evolution as well. And when she shows up in my live videos, I'm always like, give a shout out to Mama. And everybody's like, hey, Mom. And she went into, she lives in Missouri, and she was in a metaphysical place at one point in time, and overheard a conversation started a conversation with the lady there about the Akashic records. And my mom happened to say, well, my daughter, knows the Akashic records. Have you heard of Emily? And she's like, you're Emily Harrison's mom? And my mom had she had a couple of them in Hollywood too. A couple of big roles. Your son. So it's fun that she gets to come along and reinvent herself in this space too. She comes to all of my retreats, my in-person retreats.
Nice.
She's been phenomenal. But yeah, her transition from Sunday school spiritual leader in that regard, she and my dad split when I was I think I'd moved to Hollywood already at that point in time. And she really stepped into an opportunity to learn about herself, to become financially stable. And her curiosity and passion at that time led her to massage therapy. And so as she got into massage therapy, she got more and more into energy healing. And she has certifications in IET, integrated energy therapy, functional diagnostic nutrition. She loves learning about the body and how to move energy in the body. She's also a lymphatic drainage massage specialist. And so her journey has been a little bit different. It's been more focused about how this science gets translated and cultivates the physical body to prepare for all of this other shifting that's happening. So it's been really interesting. It's just as powerful as mine, but looks a little bit different,
of course, because
of how it's coming through her. And yeah, she's the one that gave me this handy dandy tool.
Okay, well, let's talk about the tuning fork, because we actually have another friend that uses the tuning fork. But you know what? Again, there's a lot of people in our flock that maybe are just hearing about the Akash for the first time, or maybe they've heard a little bit and this is their third time hearing it, and or whatever. So
that smack. That's right.
So yeah, tell us about the tuning fork, but also, a short little description of what the Akash is, because I know actually I was just explaining to someone this morning you know, because I told them I was doing a meeting with you this morning, and they're like, well, what's that? What's the Akash?
The Akashic records are the realm of consciousness where all information is programmed. Past, present, all possible futures. Future exists, like I said, in infinite possibility. So there's always wiggle room to shift and to change and to make alignments for new opportunity. Now, I talk about all the information ever, forward, backward through time, being recorded in this space. It's important to understand the perspective from which it's recorded, okay? And that perspective is a perspective of unconditional love and zero judgment. We could also call that God consciousness, right? Or universal mind or love. I mean, there are a lot of different ways that we can tap into the understanding of what this frequency is. But that's the important thing to understand. It's a frequency. And frequency matching is how we gain access to everything. So if we want to learn to see situations not from the human perspective, which is polar, which is 3D, which is not bad. It's a very high level learning mechanism to learn through shadow and light, to learn through contrast, to watch the process of energy moving from uncultivated and raw into a cultivated form. It's powerful, right? But in order to do it at a level of mastery, I feel like we need that God consciousness perspective too. We need it for insight, guidance, clarity, healing, and we also need it for advanced levels of creativity. Some of my favorite geniuses that tapped into the Akashic records, I mean, you hear a lot about like Edgar Cayce tapping in and being very connected. Albert Einstein, Nikola Tesla, Steve Jobs. They were all, in my opinion, Cayce is a great example of someone who tapped in and used the records for that purification and that healing process, right? Being able to identify exactly where people needed to heal and how they needed to do it. When we talk about Tesla, Jobs, and Einstein tapping in, they were tapping in and downloading advanced levels of technology or creativity that transformed, you know, our society. So the Akashic records are a self-actualization tool. They are aligning to the now moment where we realize everything is available to us. And we tap into that space through becoming a frequency match. Now, here's the cool thing about the tuning fork and Om and bringing all of that full circle. This is a gift from my mama. Probably did this come before? No, she gave me the Akashic record reading, and then this tool probably came 5 or 6 years later. And then I used this as part of my process, and just like I play with it now, just like waving it around for another couple years. You know what? I don't know until it's in this moment right now that I even have realized how powerful this thing is. So thank you for asking the question about this, because I get to see more about how all the pieces work. But this is calibrated to the frequency of Om, and I'll show you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
And what you do is you hold it by the
Wand.
Shaft wand. Thank you. Here. And you give it a whack there on the drums, and this all vibrates. If I knew where is that can you hear that a little?
No.
Yeah, I don't know where. I'm like holding it around my laptop. I'm like, where's the microphone here?
Yeah, bring it over here.
It's all good.
Crazy.
People can actually access those pretty easily now and play with it themselves.
And so I like to listen, calibrate through my ears. And then I also, a lot of times I'll put on my that's not my third eye, that's my heart.
Your heart.
Wave it around my crown. Here's the cool thing that ties all of this together. Sound is the primordial frequency. And when we break down, so I'm gonna give you guys a little science, share a little science here.
You go, girl.
Okay? So Akash is a Sanskrit word that means ether, and ether is primordial energy. It's the 5th element. It is the element from which all other elements emerge. And if we broke down the characteristics of it, the primordial characteristic of ether is sound. Okay. Oh, this is cool. You ready?
Mm.
Whether you believe in the Big Bang or whether you believe God spoke the universe into existence, the commonality is sound.
Mm-hmm.
And we know Om to be the primordial frequency.
Mhm.
And when I learned how to read the Akashic records myself, my training, I learned from a beautiful lady in the Hollywood area named Barbara Schiffman, and she was teaching the lineage of Linda Howe. Linda Howe, if you Google Akashic records and Linda Howe,
The queen.
she knows what she's doing in there, right? And when I completed that program, I heard my guides very clearly saying, it's time for you to create a new interpretation for people that you are going to work with in the new now moment. And I said, okay, great. What does that look like? And it was very simple what it looked like in the beginning. After using this and consecrating it for years, I realized there's nuance and power and activation in every little step of the way. But the easy part was activate the column of light, anchor it into earth and into the Akash, drop consciousness in the heart space. So we're using heart mind in here. And then sound 5 sacred ohms. And what I realize now is this was really calibrating me to that frequency long before I ever knew how important that would be to me in my lineage. I talk about the Akashic records being this realm of consciousness. There are different places we can activate this realm of consciousness. Like I talk about having this way that we go in that shifts consciousness and brainwaves. But there's also a copy or activation point within our DNA. There's activation point within certain places of Mother Earth. There's activation points for you if you listen at night. Well, that's when I hear it because my house is kind of loud other times. But the sound of silence, which is not really silent.
Yes.
Which actually is an echo from the Big Bang.
Mm-hmm.
And my belief, and when I'm working with my students, part of the process that attunes them to the Akashic field is simply listening to that sound for 15 seconds every night, tuning all of your awareness into it and just receiving all of the intelligence of the creation of our universe.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're not going to be able to unpack it. It's not going to make any damn sense. You're going to be like, oh, I'm only 7 seconds in. Darn it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But it's incredibly, incredibly powerful. So how does that feel? Does that feel pretty complete on tying all of those pieces together? What are the Akashic records and how does the Om and the tuning?
It does. So for someone who is just stepping into this, right? Because there's many different aspects of the Fruit Loop and Wind Chime Club, right? So we have channelers and tarot readers and you name it. Mm-hmm. What would be a first step, in your opinion, for them to look deeper into the Akash or their own Akash?
Step one is an acknowledgement that to some degree we're already doing it and we can do it, and to really encourage ourselves. You know, you want to have a good amount of mojo when you're going in there because you're going to have a really great experience. So just the knowingness that if you're already doing this work and the records are coming into your field, man, this is a big up level and you got this. Okay?
How will they know if the records are coming into their field?
Well, if you hear the records or you watch something like this, or you're curious, or the 3-time, the 3-pattern thing, right? And if your curiosity is not piqued, it's not for you at this time. And that's okay. There are plenty of other things that are.
Right.
And obviously someone can book a session with you and you can guide them into their Akash and get all kinds of beautiful information that would assist them on their journey and for them to know what their next step is.
Yes. And here's where, because, you know, I like to teach people how to do this. So I have free resources available, which I'm going to say step 2 of being really good at this is learning to ask the right questions. And if somebody does decide to book one-on-one time with me, where I'm going to be the most effective and genius for you is I'm going to show you how to ask the right questions. And I'm going to get you in a right frequency of consciousness where you're going to be able to receive the intelligence. And yes, I'm going to share with you what I see because I'm very good at seeing into the field and interpreting it. But at the end of the day, you're on your records too. And it's about what you're getting. And it's about me being able to hold and conduct a space for you to have an experience. And the questions are key. It seems like a simple thing, but there's so much nuance to the frequency that we ask the questions. There needs to be a curiosity and a desire for course correction, for understanding how we're showing up that's miscreating in a situation, that willingness to take responsibility. Because if we don't have that, then we can't be in full control of our matrix and our
Absolutely.
reality.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
I would agree.
we're giving away our power. The other thing that's necessary is to be in alignment and integrity with the highest good for ourselves and everyone connected to us, because there's a ridiculous amount of power here. We've destroyed ourselves with it before, many times. And so in essence, there's a time lock on the Akashic records. Back in the time of Atlantis and Lemuria, they were physically available here to everyone. I believe in crystalline form. And I think also in ancient Egypt, we're going to discover technology, scroll, log, catalogs, whatever that looks like. But there was definitely a time here on this planet when they existed in physical form, and we destroyed ourselves with it because ego and self-love, right? It's when we have a desire to manipulate others towards our own self-gain, then this becomes a very dangerous source. So after that last fall where we fucked up with it, it was in essence removed from the physical plane.
Yes.
Those of high levels of consciousness, it's never been removed, but why it's been hidden technology or suppressed information is because we really screwed ourselves up with it before. And truly it's accessible to anybody who's ready to find it when they're ready to find it. Physical form. Oh, questions. So right now, the way we're accessing the records is we're still tapping in, and it's subtle. That's why our subtle senses need to be sharp to interact, because it's not like opening and reading a book per se. It's about how well can we perceive the messages coming into our imagination. So that's what I mean. We're using our subtle energies to communicate in that space. And the records work by what's known as invitation only. They're only going to give us what we're ready to understand, comprehend, to handle. So how do they do that? By questions. When we ask the question, that unlocks the
next level
readiness to receive the answer. That's one way to say it. Here's another way to say it. We know from the 7 Hermetic laws that as above, so below. So as within, so without, that everything is like this inherent wholeness, right? And it's a reflection of each other. So when we talk about bringing a question or a problem into the records, we're bringing like the darkness or the unknown or the shadow aspect of how we experience as human, right? I said when we incarnate here, it's shadow and light. So we're taking the shadow, in essence, into the light, and it's all whole anyway. So as soon as God consciousness looks at a problem, it sees the wholeness, which invites forward the answer. So that would be another way to explain why the questions are so important. So I have a free resource guide on my website, the Akashic Scrolls.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, what this will do is this download will help every single person who's going into their records, purposefully asking questions, to formulate the questions in the right way that you're going to get the best response. And I recommend, especially when people are starting, channel write it up.
So guided
Love
writing,
it. Love
journaling.
it. Love it.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, I could listen to you.
I know.
For
I feel
hours.
like I'm talking so much.
Well, the interview is
that's
for us to introduce you to our flock. So thank you.
It's not about us. It's about you. Okay.
We have our own Feng Shui Friday where we talk lots. Trust me, we're good.
Okay. So you have three children, and I don't know how that's possible because like you look like you're 21.
Thank you. It's a result of doing this work, really.
The fountain of youth. Where is it? And how much does it cost? People want to know where to go.
I sometimes I'm like, I can't even believe you haven't used that in your marketing yet, Emily. But it's a byproduct of
doing the work,
the expansion of consciousness, because what happens is life becomes more beautiful. What happens is we become commanders of the time, space, reality in a different way, that we are actually moving through time differently. We're reversing time. There's actual more physical light coming from our cellular structure when we do this work. There's more life force energy flowing. And I'm learning how to be a great entrepreneur. So far, I've done pretty well, but I have missed that one about the marketing. Like, who doesn't want this level of like joy and vitality and expression of life, right?
Really? Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree. It's like when I learned she had 3 children, it's like, say what?
Yeah. Okay. Can I tell you how old they are? So then you're really
yes.
Sure,
yes.
absolutely.
You want to put that into perspective because everybody wants your fountain of youth elixir, and you could sell that, in a bottle, and we'd all buy it. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. It's just presence.
Mm-hmm.
It's time and presence, and for the right people, that's my mission, is to get to show up and to share that time and space and activation with the right people.
Mm-hmm.
So Jack, my oldest, is 18. He is such an incredible visionary and leader. He has already started not only initiative programs at his school, but community-wide. He took off school several weeks ago to go visit principals around to talk to them about these new initiatives that create togetherness. I'm just like, who are you, Jackie boy? He's just really an absolutely awesome child. And then my middle child, London, is 15 and absolutely as psychic as he can be. What I love about London in particular, I mean, all of my kids are like statuesque. Jack's 6'1" and has got like a wingspan. Like I can't even
and can't imagine where that comes from.
London's the football player. He actually gave me a hug this morning as he left, and he doesn't even realize that he gives me a hug like a lineman or linebacker, but he does. It's like he runs into me, just like plows into me and takes me back. So he's like this big hoss, beautiful, handsome creature, and so deep and wise. He was telling me they've got this thing called freshman seminar where the kids have to talk about their feelings. And he was like, everybody thinks it's stupid. And I actually it's not stupid. And then I show them and I just talk about like my feelings and what's coming up. And he talks from like a really deep, manly, wise perspective. And he's so handsome and big and cool. Like nobody can mess with him about that. They, they do it like he does rather than telling him how stupid he is. And then my daughter, Vivian, who she comes home and tells me her favorite stories every day she was nominated by one of her teachers and put into a classroom, which she calls them her special kids and her special friends, where she works with autistic kids. And I won't go, I mean, I'm telling you stories about all of them and I won't go into all of the stories, but the parents that acknowledge her in the hallways of how she's changing their kids' lives.
Wow.
To be so proud of her.
Wow.
She also, she freaking sings like Barbara Streisand and she's a competitive cheerleader. How about that?
Oh my gosh.
They're phenomenal. And they've been doing psychic work and healing on their friends since they were little. Like
exactly.
I taught them how to just like use their hands as antenna and conduct scalar energy to heal scratches and cuts and things on the playground when they were little. They're awesome.
That's so cool. The nice part is that you're there to encourage those gifts, which is the shift in generation, in my opinion.
Yeah. Ancestral work is so important. We've got to thank you for acknowledging that in one of the ways that it's done. It's really important that we all have the ability to see the patterns in our own ancestry that we need to shift and change and how to show up and do that work. There's quite a bit of focus on that in the Akashic Record training and the advanced training that I do. To not only is it important that we go through our own purification process of our own karma and understanding, but that we clear it backwards and forwards through time.
Very cool. Oh my gosh. Well, we're going to add links on how to reach out to Emily, how you can get in touch and work with her privately or in groups, because I know you do these amazing journeys that, well, after I was on your website, it's like, oh my God, I want to go to Mount Shasta with this woman. Anyway, well, there's some cool things to do.
Yeah, is to create an absolutely magical quantum experience that allows people to viscerally have the
experiences.
Right, we read books about, oh, that person had an angel encounter.
Exactly.
This person
I
had
want
this
that.
download, right? I'm like, I want to bring people together in a magical location where that's what we do. Remember the church camps I went to as I was a kid, and I loved that. My spiritual immersions are an adaptation of that plus Hollywood magic. Like, I want people to have such a magical experience, like watching the best movie ever, but I'm living it real life, like sci-fi fantasy movies.
Very cool. Oh man, we might have to have a part 2.
We definitely will. And I know from my my soul knowingness that we are the trilogy, the 3 of us. We will be working together at some level. Oh my gosh, I just got major
confirmation.
And so this, you're going to be seeing a lot more of Emily with Feng Shui with Anita and Cheryl. That's all I can say. So stay tuned, because it's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. It's going to be transformational, magical. I love that word, magical. And and our time is like, we're up already, aren't we?
Oh yeah, we're up. We're totally up. And she has other appointments, and we don't want to keep her from that. So oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I couldn't take my inspiring off.
I love it.
Because we are so inspired.
We are so inspired.
And we are going to put all the links, how to contact Emily, how to, all that good stuff. And of course, we are Feng Shui with Anita and Cheryl, and our playlist, the F.L.A.W.C, which is the Fruit Loop and Wind Chime Club. And so, Emily, thank you so much for agreeing to be part of our flock. We are honored, and from our heart to yours, blessings. May you be blessed and prosper.
Even more than she already is.
I receive.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.